So what stopped it from hitting the road? Well, that would be somebody that I already hated before this video, and everybody's favorite 1980s cocaine dealer, Mr. John Z. DeLorean. Sporting an all-new LT2 power plant, pumping out over 490 horsepower, 495 if you get the Z51 package, and oh, by the way, the engine is in the middle. This beast comes in at only $60,000 base price, all the while being able to compete with and beat the Corvette ZR1. This is a phenomenal car, and it has just been awesome to see the fact that the internet and everybody in the community has just been so appreciative and so open to the new mid-engine idea. I mean, once it was all but confirmed that the new Corvette was going to be mid-engined, there was a little worry about whether or not some people might be a little upset at the change, and it's just been great to see the fact that everybody is 100% on board and agrees that this has got to be the greatest Corvette you could ever buy for the money. There's going to be a saxophone compilation, isn't there? Since when has there been any mention whatsoever about GM building a mid-engine Corvette?
What? What gives you the right?
Never. If you don't count the past 50 years. What if I told you that the man dubbed as the grandfather of the Corvette, Zora Duntov, spent his entire career fighting to get the engine put in the back? So in his honor, today we're going to go over the history of the mid-engine Corvette. GM's love affair with the mid-engine car actually started in 1959 with the CERV I. Secretly known as the R car, the CERV I was an open-wheel single-seater race car powered by a small block V8. Putting out over 350 horsepower at 6,200 RPM, the CERV I was a bullet. Duntov himself, a highly respected racing driver, actually ran it up Pikes Peak over 60 times in 1960 with pretty good results. But sadly, in 1957, GM withdrew from every form of racing. And with that, the CERV I and Duntov's dreams of the mid-engine vet pretty much died. Or did they?
Dun, dun, dun.
Duntov was determined to make the Corvette mid-engine, so his next step was to get it on the track as soon as possible. Duntov knew that in order to get a mid-engine Corvette on the streets, you had to start at the track. That's where the CERV II came in. Although the CERV I was just some crazy open-wheel prototype, the CERV II was a lot more race-focused. It was designed to be a mid-engine Le Mans racer to compete in endurance races so that GM could get enough research on the track to get a good, reliable mid-engine base for the road. And then one of GM's biggest automotive problems hit with the Corvair being declared one of the unsafest cars of all time. So naturally, the world probably wouldn't have reacted very well to a completely redesigned Corvette. And yet again, Duntov's mid-engine Corvette was killed. After 2 failures, you'd think Zora would be done trying to get the engine put in the middle of the Corvette. It just wasn't gonna work. But in 1968, Zora took yet another chance at putting the engine in the middle of the Corvette, and it came in the form of the 1968 XP880 Astro II. Geez, that name is long. What made the Astro so different from the others, however, was the fact that the Astro was the first ever road-going prototype of the mid-engine Corvette. Engineered by Zora and designed by Bill Mitchell, the Astro II was designed as a sleek road-going passenger car. And it wasn't just pretty, it was quick too. Powered by a 390 horsepower 427 V8, mounted to a 2-speed transaxle. The Astro was first seen by the public at the New York Auto Show in 1968. Ironically, the same year as the great C3 hit the showroom, with the V8 planted firmly in the front. But this fight was far from over. In 1970, just 2 years after Zora failed at getting the engine put in the middle of the C3, he mocked up a prototype by the name of the XP882. The car was beautiful, it drove better than any Corvette ever made, and it was jaw-droppingly quicker than any Corvette on the streets at the time. So what stopped it from hitting the road? Well, that would be somebody that I already hated before this video, and everybody's favorite 1980s cocaine dealer, Mr. John Z. DeLorean, who canceled the project in 1969. At this point, Zora was pissed. He had had it being crushed by GM upper brass. This was it. So he found a way around DeLorean and managed to have one of the prototypes shown at the 1970 New York Auto Show. And it was a fan favorite. So much so that DeLorean was forced to fund further development. The mid-engine Corvette was finally going to happen after years and years of trying. In 1970, we were about to see the engine properly placed in the right end of the Corvette. That was until the 1973 Arab oil embargo.
The Arabs made an economic power play. As punishment for this country's support of Israel, 11 Arab countries cut off all oil shipments to the United States.
We are heading toward the most acute shortages of energy since World War II.
This turnpike, usually crowded with trucks and automobiles at this time of the year, is
which not only killed any chance of seeing a mid-engine Corvette, but also slowed all other Corvette development. So for the third time in a row, Zora's mid-engine dream had been killed by some crazy freak accident. GM's next attempt at a mid-engine Corvette came in the form of the 1972 XP895 and 1973 Reynolds aluminum Corvette. Just when I thought the names couldn't get any longer, they did. The problem with the 895 though was the fact that it looked a little bit too European. The cars presented beforehand actually looked like Corvettes, sporting similar lines to the front engine Corvettes of the day as well. The 895, however, looked like a wedgy European sports car, and at that, not a very good one. Now, if you're one of those people who's really ticked off and think that the Corvette looks too European, just wait until you hear how bad it could have been. Meet the 1973 XP897 GT, aka the two-rotor Corvette. Just when I thought the names couldn't get any longer, they did. To kick things off, it had a Japanese Wankel two-rotor engine and was supposed to be the beginning of a whole new sub-Corvette line. And to make matters even more foreign, it had a customized Pininfarina body. Pininfarina being the company that's been doing Ferrari's aero work since the beginning of time. Whether you like him or hate him, pretty much every Ferrari has had Pininfarina involved in some sort of way. This car also had a modified Porsche 914 chassis, so obviously that didn't get anywhere. But GM wasn't quite done with a four-rotor engine yet. Another prototype in 1973 featured a four-rotor Corvette. You see, GM had invested millions into trying to make the four-rotor work for the new Corvette, but the American market just wasn't having it. Either way, this car looked pretty cool, sporting gull-wing doors and a 420 horsepower engine. Bill Mitchell, the man who designed the car, loved it so much that he decided to park it and wait for a better time to unveil it to the public. However, it never came. Next came the 1977 Aerovette. After a couple of attempts, GM finally learned their lesson that the rotary engine just wasn't going to work for the American market or the Corvette. So in 1977, GM fitted the Aerovette with the XP895 powertrain, and it was instantly a hit. The mid-engine Corvette was finally going to happen in 1977. This was it. But sadly, Zora Duntov and Bill Mitchell didn't stay in GM long enough to ensure that it would actually happen, and their replacements instantly killed it as a cost-saving measure. So instead, we got the C4.
Well, isn't that special?
But the fight wasn't over yet. 1986 brought the all-new Chevrolet Corvette Indy prototype. Now this was a really special car because it not only showed the mid-engine Corvette as a cool, interesting concept, but it also involved a lot of new and interesting technology to get people excited about the idea. This baby featured stuff like active suspension, four-wheel steering, anti-lock brakes, traction control, onboard electronic screens, and even a GPS. I can't stress enough how important of a car this was, because this got people really excited about the mid-engine Corvette. Not to mention the fact that it was powered by GM's brand new Indy 2.65 twin-turbo V8. Putting out around 600 horsepower. Now, although the Indy was an awesome platform, it needed to be optimized. It needed to be brought more to ground level. The Indy looked cool and had a bunch of cool stuff, but it really wasn't a car you could see yourself driving on the road. I mean, it only had one seat. The CERV III solved this problem. Ran on a passenger seat and a more road-friendly 5.7-liter 32-valve dual overhead cam LT5 V8, producing 650 horsepower. But it was built by Lotus in England, so obviously the American market would have pitched a fit about that, and that too got scrapped. Whether you love them or hate them, each of these cars has been extremely unique in their own way to make the Corvette what it is today. Yes, some people will disagree with the fact that the engine is now at the other end, and some will love it. But regardless, the Corvette has always been, and always will be, an American icon of speed, passion, and attainable performance. Which one's your favorite, the old ones or the new C8? Let me know in the comments, and as always, my name's Nathan Burke, this is Race Rave, thanks for watching.